What's happening, guys? Oxford King here, and in this Diablo 4 video, I'm going to walk you through how I built the Spiritborn Rushing Claw build. Let's get started. First up is the gear. Now, we are rocking 2 mythics. These are, in my opinion, a staple of the build, and all the footage that you saw, I used these 2 mythics here. So go ahead and grab the Shackles or the Harlequin crest when you can. And as far as the masterworking goes, try to masterwork the life and the cooldown reduction. However, if you do end up masterworking the armor, that's okay too, because we are using an aspect that's going to elevate our damage based on how much armor we have. So really, the world is your oyster when it comes to masterworking the Harlequin quest. Moving over to the body piece, the Shroud of False Death. This one here is really awesome. +1 to all passives. I think you guys know what this one is all about by now. Let's go ahead and look at the masterworking. I went ahead and masterworked into maximum life. I actually didn't have time to finish up all the masterworking to 12 on most of the gear here that you see on screen, but I did manage to double masterwork the maximum life, so I would recommend that you do the same. Next up are the gloves. We have some legendary gloves here. The Fell Soothsayer's Exceptional gloves, and what you're looking for here is what you see on screen. You're going to look for some dexterity. You're going to look for crit strike chance and lots of crit strike damage. You want to get double crit strike damage if you can, and then you're going to go ahead and temper on barrier gen and crit strike damage. When it comes to the aspect, the one that I have imprinted here is the one that you see on the bottom when you cast an incarnate skill. Enemies around you become vulnerable for 5 seconds, but the bread and butter is killing a vulnerable enemy. Echoes is massive amounts of damage, that 55% damage of the killing blows damage to another nearby enemy. This was a game changer when I was pit pushing to like 100 pit tier and all that, past 100 and all that. This right here changed the build for me because I wasn't using this before. So grab this one. When it comes to the pants, I'm using the Adventurer's Pants of Temporal Incisions. And what I grabbed here was maximum life, armor. I did grab lightning res because this build here is very resistance starved. I don't even think any of my resistances are capped, but I'll take a look here in just a second. But I did have lightning res on that one. And then we have barrier gen on the temper. And then I also tempered on total armor. As far as the masterwork goes, I tried to masterwork armor on there and total armor a lot because I am building around the damage output for more armor that we have as far as the aspect goes. Speaking of aspects, this one here is the Casting Rushing Claw. Extends the durations of your active incarnate skill, right? And so with this build, we're doing Ravager and we're doing Toxic Skin. We're also doing Vortex as well, but all these are incarnate skills. So you're going to want to have this. I wasn't using it before. And as soon as I put this in here, it was a game changer. Ravager and Toxic Skin are up at all times. It's really, really awesome. I would recommend that you check this out. Moving over to the boots, we have Duelist Sovereign Greaves. Now, this one here, you don't have to get this one where it says, evade grants 125% movement speed. Sure, you can go ahead and grab it if you can and get a couple stacks of the evade on there. So it really doesn't matter that much, but I do enjoy it because when you evade, that boost in speed, it's kind of awesome. So I do stick with this one. What I looked for here was dexterity. Movement speed on the GA, I did grab that one. That was lucky, obviously, but if you can get some movement speed on the boots, that would be tremendous. Now, because this build is resistance starved, I'm not using Yin's Blessing. Now, if you're suffering on resistances or you find yourself dying a lot, go ahead and grab the Yin's Blessing unique instead of these, but I did this instead. I haven't really died at all. I feel like all the barrier gen that I have and all the defenses that I have up, I'd never really die. So anyways, I grabbed cold resistance there. As far as the tempers go, I have barrier gen, and then I also grabbed +3 to swift like you see on screen. The aspect is the one that says maximum ferocity increased by however many you have for Spiritborn only. This is not a necessity. If you like something else, like there's another aspect you can grab that deals more damage when you crowd control, I believe, or when you fear someone. I think it's called Fear. So if you can do that, grab that, especially if you're doing the Scourge build. I'm not doing the Scourge build, but I wanted more ferocity because I feel like when I have this, the build feels faster with ferocity, in my humble opinion. That's why I went with this one. But really, you can grab whatever you'd like if you were looking for more damage. I wanted more speed, so that's what I went with here. When it comes to the weapon, you're going to want to grab the Quarterstaff if you can. This one you see on screen is the Golden Quarterstaff of Redirected Force. Now, I happen to do maximum on the masterwork on this one, and what I was looking for with the weapon was dexterity, maximum life, lots of crit damage as you see on screen, and then as far as the tempers go, you can see I did do crit damage, and then I also did +2 Ravenous. So those are your 2 tempers. When it comes to the aspect, I did the one where it says Redirected Force, which gains increased critical strike damage equal to a percentage of your block chance, which we have a lot of. and then blocking doubles this bonus for 10 seconds. My damage and attack power and critical strike damage goes like through the roof with this. I would highly recommend that you grab this. It is amazing. Moving over to the amulet, we have Deathling's Islet of Interdiction. This one's also a maximum masterworked as well. What I was looking for here was some dexterity. Didn't matter if it was percentage based or flat based. I just so happen to have percentage based dexterity. I also crafted on some maximum life. I did have a GA of total armor percentage because of the aspect that we're using. We want to build up that damage with the armor. And then we're going to have critical strike damage on that temper. And then we have maximum resolve stacks on that second temper there. When it comes to the masterwork, I was looking at the masterwork. Anything you see on screen here, the maximum resolve, crit strike damage, and total armor. If you really want to hone down, if you're more of a resolve stack person, especially with the colossal glyph, which I'm not using on this build, try to get that maximum resolve stack up as high as possible. If you're not a fan of the resolve stacking, you'd rather not do that. Basically do what you have, what you see on screen, especially maximum life for the Paragon board that we go more later. Moving down to the ring, we have Trimetal Ring of Unyielding Hits. Okay, this one's also maximum masterworked as well. We're going to have damage. Now, you don't need to grab that. I just happened to get a good drop with the GA of critical strike damage, so I went with it. I stuck with it. That first bullet just happens to be damaged. If you can get crit strike chance or life, dexterity, or even attack speed, that's just as good. I just so happen to have that damage at the top, and I was like, cool, I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Didn't even bother crafting that off. But what I did craft on was the lucky hit chance of up to a percentage to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. I happen to love that craft. I noticed like a lot of other folks don't really have that craft into their ring here. I happen to love it. So I don't use exploit on my board because I am doing vulnerable right here on the ring. So I personally love that. You can do whatever you'd like. When it comes to the tempers, I'm grabbing the critical strike damage temper right there you see on screen. And then the second temper, I grab potency cooldown reduction because our rushing claw is a potency skill. So I went ahead and grabbed that as well. When it comes to the masterwork, I tried to masterwork crit strike damage. I ended up getting twice on that. You can also try to get, we have 2 crit strike damage as well. If you can do this, you can also try to land that potency cooldown reduction as well on your masterwork, and that would also help out quite a bit. Now, speaking of the aspect, this is what I was talking about earlier as I was explaining the build. This is the casting a guerrilla skill, increase your weapon damage by a certain percentage of your armor for 3 seconds, maximum 1500 bonus. This is huge. Anytime you cast a guerrilla skill, your damage goes up significantly. The more armor that you have, I am a big believer in this. I think it's awesome. So try to get your armor stacked up. Grab this aspect, and I promise you, your attack power goes up quite a bit. When it comes to the second ring, we're looking at Wound Drinker Unique. This is a pretty big staple in this build. So it's going to have some thorns, damage to poison enemies. I got the GA on that, damage reduction for poison enemies as well. And then we're going to have +2 toxic skin. I happen to masterwork double on the toxic skin there. That's going to be huge for us. And then it says every time you deal thorns damage, you gain some vigor, which doesn't really matter, and then gain toxic skin's passive effect. But this one's pretty big here, so go ahead and grab this one here and try to get that masterwork on toxic skin the best you can. Moving over to the runes and the gems. For the runes and the helmet, I have Yol Q, which is going to give us Earthen Bulwark. Moving down to the body piece, I have the double barrier gen in the body piece, and I also have double barrier gen in the pants as well. Moving down to the weapon, I have the Zalzel, is how you pronounce that. And what this one does is gives us 20% maximum life because of the viscous shield board that we'll be going over later on. When it comes to the rings here, I did slot in a resistance for fire, which is going to be 60%. And then I slotted in a 60% shadow res right there. And in the final slot here is 12% resistances to all. Speaking of resistances, they're not capped on this build, but this is what they are. We got 41 and 54.8, 64.6, 63.5, and 41. I never die. Got to be honest with you. I've done all the content in the game, completed everything that I can. I never die. However, if you feel like you're struggling, there's definitely incense that you can grab to definitely help this out and get you towards max should you choose to do so. Also, don't forget, you can always swap out these boots and do Yen's Blessing, and all your resistances are taken care of. When it comes to the elixirs and the incense, these are the ones that I'm using. For the elixir, I use the Elixir of Fortitude Tier 2, the advanced version. The reason we're doing this is for the increased maximum life by 20%. When it comes to the incense, I'm using 3. And if you didn't know this, you can actually use 3 incense at the same time as long as they're different types. So if you look at the screen, you'll see type 1, type 2, and type 3. You can have all of these on at the same time. And the 3 that I have are Redamine Buzz, which is going to give us maximum life plus 500, which helps us out with the damage. And then we also have Chorus of War, increase all stats by 40, and critical strike and overpower damage by 5%. Finally, we have the Song of the Mountain, which increases our armor by plus 200. And remember, the aspect that we're using is going to help us out with damage on that armor. When it comes to the Spirit Hall, you have two choices here. You can either do double Jaguar, which is really awesome. You're going to also have that second Jaguar here. The reason we're doing that is because we want to have a stack of ferocity whenever you kill an enemy or damage a boss. That way you don't drop your ferocity because of this skill. The skill uses up ferocity quite a bit. So you want to make sure that you have ferocity at all times. That's the reason we're doing the second one, okay? Now, for the main animal here, you can do Jaguar, which does a ton of damage on bosses because of what it lists here with the high damage output. However, I do actually enjoy the main animal being gorilla as well because of the aspect that we're doing where it says when you do a gorilla skill, you're going to have a lot more damage on your weapon. This right here is really, really nice. So if you don't want to do Jaguar and you want to see what gorilla is all about and you have your high armor, what that aspect that I was talking about earlier, try out gorilla and see if you like it. They're both good in their own way. When it comes to the mercenaries, really you can do whatever you'd like, whatever floats your boat. Your two favorite mercenaries, go with those. But I like to go fast, so I chose Variana for my main, and I went down this path here where I chose Cleave, and I went down to Hysteria, then I grabbed Bloodthirst, and then I grabbed Bloodlust. All of these things kind of give us more attack speed with Variana. That's just how I like to play, but you can choose whatever you like to do. When it comes to the reinforcement, I chose Rahir. And the one I chose with for the ability here was Provoke for the 5% damage reduction for each target. And then I selected our main skill here to trigger that, which is Rushing Claw. All right, let's go ahead and move into the skill tree. I went ahead and grabbed the Rock Splitter along with this additional point here. That's just to kind of move us up the line here. I don't use this skill at all. And then coming down here, same thing. I don't really use this stuff down here because we're not using a core skill and we're not using basic skills, right? So I went ahead and grabbed 1 Vigorous, and then I grabbed 3 in Velocity to move us down here. Here I have 1 point into Vortex. Now you have a choice here. You can either do Measured Vortex, because what it says is while you have an active barrier, which is all the time, your Vortex does 300% additional damage, and it knocks down enemies, which we do a lot of damage of crowd-controlled enemies, which is knocking down, right? If you don't like that, you can definitely try out Replenishing Vortex. Critical Strike Vortex reduces its cooldown by 1 second. This is also nice, keeps up that uptime with the Vortex, okay? This one, I love Vortex, by the way, because when you group them up, everything explodes with that aspect we talked about earlier with the vulnerable one that blows up everything. This right here was a game changer. I wasn't using Vortex before when I was doing this build. With this one, groups them all up, boom. It's really nice, very nice quality of life. Coming over to the left here, we have 1 into Focal Point, but then we have 3 into Apex for the vulnerability damage. Moving down here is Toxic Skin. Go ahead and pump in 5 points there. And then we're going to move down to the right part of the tree, which is Measured Toxic Skin. Go ahead and grab that right there. Over here for Ravager, we have 1 into Ravager, and then we're going to fork off over to the right side called Replenishing Ravager, which gets up really high damage there. Over here on the right side, we have 3 into Mirage. Gain 60% increased dodge chance during evade. Whenever you dodge, you gain 15% critical strike chance for 3 seconds. Go ahead and pump 3 points into Unrestrained Power, and then down at the bottom, 3 points into Swift. Your mobility skill cooldowns are reduced by 3 seconds, and it just so happens that the skill we're using happens to be a mobility skill. Keep that in mind, okay? Coming down here, this next section here, I went ahead and put in 1 point into Endurance and then 3 points into Perseverance because of the Resolve. You get 1.5% additional damage reduction per stack of Resolve. We did grab 1 point into Armored Hide. Moving up to the left side, Reinforced Armored Hide. If you do not want this, I would recommend that you grab Counterattack instead, and then come down and grab Reinforced Counterattack. That's another option in case you don't want to grab Armored Hide. Coming down here, I grabbed Anti-Venom, one of them, and then I put 3 points into Nourishment. And the reason we're doing this is because your healing is increased by 20%. Whenever you heal, your poisoning damage is increased by 9% for 3 seconds. So this is pretty nice here. Coming down here to this area at the bottom, we went ahead and grabbed 3 into Resilient. So casting a Gorilla Skill grants 50% increased maximum life for 10 seconds. So that's going to be your Armored Hide, okay? So keep that in mind. If you choose to drop this, right, and you want to come over to Counterattack, just keep that in mind that this won't work if you do your Jaguar as a main Spirit Hall. But if you go Gorilla main Spirit Hall, everything's a Gorilla skill. So you'll be good to go. You get what I'm saying? So drop a comment if you heard that part of the video. Moving over here to Rushing Claw. Now here, we only put 1 point in here, and then we're going to move over to Invasive Rushing Claw, where using your Rushing Claw's last charge will refill your 4 charges by consuming 4 stacks of ferocity. Now, why 1 point and not 5 points is because we're not really using Rushing Claw for its damage. We're mainly using it for its mobility. We don't really care about the damage of this one, okay? Which is why we have the mythics. Those mythics on the other screen will get us up to 5 of 5 here. So it's okay with that damage, but it's not really why we're doing that. Moving over here to Potent, we did grab 3. You can do 3 into Furnace if you choose to do so, but if you read what it says per stack of ferocity. Well, we're always burning through our ferocity all the time. So this Furnace really wouldn't matter. I wouldn't grab those if you can do that, okay? Move over here. We have 3 into Ravenous, okay? Where your Centipede skills deal 7.5% increased damage. Now, if you notice earlier, the gear is going to jack all this up, all these numbers up. I took off all the gear to show you the real base numbers, okay? And then I pumped 2 into Oppressive. Moving down over here, for the ultimate, you have 2 choices. 1, the Hunter, put 1 point into this. Or if you're tired of the Hunter and you want to try something different, the Devourer is really good as well. Put 1 point into here, all the way down for each one. Now, the reason I go with the Hunter is not because of the gap closing and all that stuff. The big reason that we're going with the Hunter is because of the reset cooldown, but it also says the Hunter overfills your ferocity by 4 stacks and causes you to deal 100% increased damage to injured enemies. So it's a ferocity synergy, was why I went the Hunter. I did try out the Devourer, and honestly, I liked it just as much. Equally, they're very good. So if you're tired of the Hunter, check out the Devourer. I think you may like it. Coming off to the left, 3 points into Resolution. We dumped 1 into Spiritual Attunement and then 3 into Supremacy. This is a lot of damage right here because of the ultimate. A lot of you guys who play D4 know exactly what's going on here. Come down here to the key passives. We are using Noxious Resonance. This is huge. That current bonus damage that says 492, that right there is me sitting in town idle, wearing no gear, doing nothing. If I go to a striking dummy, this number goes up to like 30-something thousand. It's ridiculous. This right here is huge. This is why we want to stack up our critical strike damage. Get that up as much as possible and watch the magic happen. It's amazing. So coming back into the skill tree, when I put on all my gear, you can see that I have 15 in Toxic Skin. You can get this number way, way, way higher, probably up in the 20s if you can. So there you go. And then I have 5 into Ravager as well. You can see that I have 5 into Vortex. You get the point. As soon as you put on the Shackles or anything else, all these numbers start to fly. Check this out right here. 12 into Ravenous. It's super good. I would recommend that you grab those mythics if you can. Let's look at the Paragon board. The starting board here. I did go ahead and grab the Prime Rare node and Tenacity. And then we also looked at Spirit here. I try to get as much dexterity as possible with Spirit. You can see that I have pretty much looks like 458-ish, or maybe even 459-ish percentage of crit strike damage. That's where I place that there. If you don't want this, you can definitely do what a lot of other players are doing, which is throw in Colossal on this spot. I have seen that quite a bit. I personally am not using Colossal with this build, but if you have a nice resolve stack going, and by big stack, I mean like 25, 30 plus, resolve stack. I don't. I have like 14. But if you're one of those that has a really high resolve stack, I would probably put in Colossal in this spot. Moving up here, we did grab Spiritual Node and then Skillful Node as well. Moving up north, the first board that I grabbed was Viscous Shield. Don't need to explain this board much. Personally, I think this board is busted. Probably going to be nerfed soon. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I did have it rotated in this direction here. Pause the screen if you choose to do so to look at the rotation. And then I went up left here and I grabbed this node here called Primal Ward. I went up this way and I grabbed this node called Raptor. I went off to the right and I grabbed Slayer. And then I grabbed the Legendary node. And then coming up to the top right, we grabbed the other node called Bristle. Coming back over here, we did grab the Socket. And this one's going to be Fitness. This is more crit strike damage. Go ahead and pause the screen and take a look at that. These are the dexterity nodes. Once I have more Paragon points, you can see in my top left corner there, it's going to be 272. Actually, in post, it'll probably be cut out because of how I do my editing. But just so you know, my Paragon level is 272. So I eventually will be grabbing these dex nodes in the near future. And then I did grab the Fearless node as well. Moving up north, I did grab the Sentinel along with all this Barrier Gen, which is the big reason why I even grabbed that, okay? Let's go off to the right here. Coming over here to this board, I did end up grabbing this board here, which is called Revealing. This one's huge. Lots of damage here for vulnerable enemies, increased knockdown damage, all that fun stuff, crowd control damage. This is really, really powerful, okay? Now, come back over here. Let's go ahead and move our way up north. We grabbed Venom Weaver, and then we did grab the glyph here. This is going to be Bane, which is big time damage for that poison damage with toxic skin. Don't sleep on this. It's super awesome. Coming up north, we grabbed this rare node card called Artifice. Go ahead and grab that one as well. And then we already talked about this one down here, but I will stop right here. We did grab Grounded for the attack speed and poisonous resistance. And then we did grab this one here called Haven for more life and armor. Let's go ahead and move up north to the next board. This board here is called Convergence. Go ahead and grab, actually, let me go ahead and back up. Come up here, and then you're going to grab the node called Elementalist. And then I moved my way up to the left and I grabbed Ruinous. And then I went ahead and went up north and grabbed Convergence, okay? And then I made my way back over here to grab this node called Training for Life and Resistances to All. And then come up north here and we're going to grab this glyph. And this is where I place in Menagerist. Now, this one's optional. You don't have to use Menagerist. There's plenty of other options that you could use in this build. I mean, seriously, this world is your oyster when it comes to this build. Use whatever that you think fits well. As an example, you could probably, Colossal is a perfect example, actually. You can use Colossal if you want to do that. Canny's another good one because we're doing nothing but non-physical damage. We have poison, we have fire. It's all non-physical. Those are a couple of options. So you have Canny, you have Colossal, but like I said, I went with Menagerist. That's what I went with, okay? And then coming off to the right here, we grabbed Spearhead. And then up here at the very top, we grab Skillful for that rare node. Moving off to the right side here, we exited that board and we're going into the next board, okay? Now, what we did is we grabbed Sapping, all right? This is the next board on this build is Sapping. And then what I did is I went right, and honestly, I grabbed this node here called Resilience, and then I went up north first to grab Sapping. After that, I came back down south to grab Spriteful right here, that rare node there. And then I went down a little bit further to the southeast side and I grabbed Concentrated, all right? And then I grabbed this node here and then I opened up Wildfire. So why Wildfire? Why this? Why are we doing this when majority of the build is mainly poison with toxic skin? Well, the Claw itself is fire damage. Ravager, right, is also fire damage. And if you go the Hunter, that's also fire damage. We're doing a lot of fire damage, but why else did we do this? If you look at that lucky hit chance right there in green, damaging enemies with direct fire damage has up to a 30% chance to reduce one of your active cooldowns by 0.5 seconds. That is a big reason that we did this. And let me tell you something, when I slotted this in, my build changed significantly. All of my cooldowns are practically ready to go at all times. You want all of them up as much as possible. Grab Wildfire. I know it seems really strange. Trust me, grab it. And you'll notice all your cooldowns are ready to go at all times. It's really, really awesome. Give it a shot. After that, I moved up and grabbed Eager Prey. This was my favorite build in the game so far, next to the Rake build. This one reminded me of Path of Exile, Flicker Strike quite a bit. It's not as fast as Flicker Strike, but it's pretty close. So I love this. You guys drop a comment. Let me know, what would you change? I know there's a lot of people out there that do a similar build like this with Scourge. I tried it. I didn't like it. I went with what I have here and I just enjoyed it quite a bit more. But drop a comment and let me know, what do you think of this build and what would you change to make it even better? Thanks for watching.